So first, let's talk about topology and formats. Well, for now, Minsar supports two types of 3D objects, which are GLTF or GLB and OBJ. I really advise you to use GLTF or GLB, which is basically the same thing. See, if you go right here, you have three different formats, but technically it's the same format actually. Okay? And GLB is much more powerful and easier to use because it can allow you to export everything into one single file, just as I'm doing right here. I'm exporting my model into one file, and you see in my Explorer, it's right here, it's everything inside one single file, and it can also contain animations, blend shapes, so everything in one single file, which is really, really convenient. Then the very first thing you have to watch on your object is its topology. So the topology of a 3D model is basically its meshing, right? The way it is modeled. And as you certainly know, each unit of a mesh is called a triangle. Here's one, here's another, etc. And in Blender, in this case, you have the number of triangles right here, and you have to keep this number to a minimum. Indeed, the more triangles you have, the heavier your object will be. In Minsar, we consider that a scene should not contain more than an average 300,000 or 500,000 triangles, which is already a lot. Also, I'm talking about triangles, but in your vocabulary, you might be talking about polygons, right? Actually, it's almost the same thing, but I think that talking about triangles is less ambiguous than talking about polygons, right? Because in some 3D softwares, a polygon is actually a face, that is to say, two triangles. So, of course, well, according to what word we use, it might mean a different count. That's why I'm talking about triangles, to be sure that everyone understands correctly what I mean, all right? Also, you should take care of the general graph of your scene, okay? Which is basically right here, in this case, in Blender. Okay, so here you can see how your objects are parented to each other, the number of submeshes you have, etc. So this is the graph of your scene. So basically the number of objects, meshes and submeshes and how they are parented to each other is what's going to influence how long the objects will take to be loaded and rendered in Minsar. So in this case, of course, it's still a very simple graph, okay, with just one object parented to another. But the more links you have, the more complex objects with animations, rigs, etc., the more it might take long to load and render in Minsar. So let's sum up a bit. First, you should definitely use the GLB or GLTF format. Then you should target a maximum of 300,000 or 500,000 triangles for one Minsar scene. And then be mindful of the complexity of your scene graph, because the more complex your scene graph is, the longer it will take loading and rendering in Minsar.